Worlds of Adventure, a learning game for 2 to 8 players that reinforces the skills and concepts that are covered in each of the units of a World of Adventure. And I'm not familiar with the company. I wasn't a kid when this came out. So it has 8 pieces here. And it has 6 boards. So we get World of the Explorers, World of the Renaissance and Reform, World of the Middle Ages, World of Ancient Egypt, World of Ancient Greece, World of Ancient Rome. Well, culturally, we see these 3 things in succession, right? Well, we see the whole thing in succession, because then we have the Middle Ages, and the Renaissance and Reform, and the Explorers, really the colonial age. But then again, we're getting the implication of Vikings. So is the Vikings stirring about the changes that meant the Middle Ages, or whatever order they're in, right? To give you an idea of my seasonal progression, we have Yule, Imbolc, Ostara, Beltane, Autolitha, Lunasa, Mabon, Madron, Samhain. So the cross quarters, the cross quarters, not the Christian holidays of Halloween and Walpurgisnacht and Lammas and Candlemas, and the solstices and the equinoxes. So I observe, or at least pay attention to those exact days. Now, so 6, 4, 6, 3, things are structurally the same. So in the world of the Renaissance and the Reformation, we do link it to what happened with the marauding hordes. Not really the right way of thinking, but the Celts going from Austria, Germany, over across Europe, that had its effect. The Vikings coming down, that had its effect. Splitting up of the church and stuff had its effect. So there's roots in things in other periods. So, while the Mongolians and the Magyars coming forth, that was also quite the thing too. And then the Crusades start, and then they're kind of eventually want to work on themselves, because in the Bible you have this idea, you got the externalized enemy that you focus on. The beast of the land is more of the focus, but in the Islamic tradition of the end times, it's the beast of the sea, like with the Sufi rituals. You got the Hizb al-Bahr, for example, and the Hizb Adar, or something like that. And so the thing you do once a week, or the thing that has this external focus, well, that's a later focus. Hebrews 12, 1-3 is referenced here. You have other biblical passages that were influential. They, of course, don't want you to think about the ones that aren't scientifically accurate, right? So there was that motivation of the Renaissance, and maybe the church had gone too far and people want a more biblical answer, but I don't know of a church that has ever put the Bible first in everything. I mean, I know there's parts that contradict other parts, and so which part are you going to follow? But some of the answers are very simple, like, was this person, what's not true about this guy? And the right answer was something is, like, the guy didn't play football, right? So I think I should say something about which pieces I would give to which ones. And so with that, I would say orange and red would be the colors I would attribute to the last program. The World of Explorers, I would give the brown piece. Not necessarily the seasonal points, like, about a week into November and onwards, and about a week into August and onwards. I'm, not so sure about that. But things have reached its coldest, a few days into February. That makes more sense. Then you kind of want to go out, and at least it's not going to get worse, right? Well, I've been in my area and had sometimes the only snow been in March. Sometimes another year, the coldest temperatures of the cold part of the year were in March. So with the World of Explorers, we do have some biblical questions. And this is both after and before the last program in its scope. And scientific discoveries weren't, well, I mean, it was sort of a thing of science. There was the science of navigating, the science of ships and warfare, and be kind of inconvenient to have a house in the middle of the thing. But it lets you know that there would be a compartment of storage or living so you don't slide off the boat. Black, white, and green are the colors of traditional Islamic flags. First you assert the path, then you have the black alchemy, and then you establish sovereignty. But when it comes to the world of the Middle Ages, it was a dark time, but then again, is a bright time of regrowth. And in some ways, it was a peak of civilization. In some ways, it's sort of a depth of some stuff going on. But then again, nowadays, things are so much worse in terms of the character of society, right? So that's not obvious where we're going. And so things were lost due to the, the sectarian wars and all that stuff that could have been going on. And I do think, it wasn't just like how to make things or whatever that would have been lost. It was, the foods you could eat. So Europe lost a lot of, Europe was kind of known for having the blandest food around. And things, in the Middle Ages, things were slipping away from the attachment to religion as far as something other than, something that's a directing factor in politics, but it's more of a surface directing thing in politics. But as the Middle Ages passed on, you no longer had Islamic states. They were quasi-Islamic states, and things got divided not into schools of thought and political parties, but that got mistaken for the religion itself, those attachments. And yeah, there's some Bible questions in here, and they're really not making the connection with it, but it might be, it's a whole, this is a whole schooling system for kids. You train your kids with these answers, and so 119. Oh, okay, you progress here. So before I go on, I'm going to have to figure out the order that they intended this to be in. Ancient Egypt is the first 30 days. Day 31 to 59 is ancient Greece. Day 61 to 90 is the world of ancient Rome. I presume they meant to have the ancient Greece be 60 days as well, but I'm not seeing it listed in the book. Is that? The Middle Ages is day 91 to 119. Probably 120, we'll see. 121 to 149, probably 150, is the world of the Renaissance and Reformation. The world of explorers is day 151 to 179. For some, Easter starts as late as May, or sometimes it does. So that makes sense. But also because out of ancient Rome and its different systems of philosophy and stuff sprung Christianity. Of course, Judaism by name as well, too. But, so, yeah, ancient Rome has questions about the New Testament, probably more than any of the other books. And, of course, supposedly Isaiah presages Christianity, but in a literal sense it kind of doesn't. And what if they said, what if people realize that it says she'll be born of a maiden rather than a virgin? Where would we go with that? We have some ideas that I guess eventually turned into the cultural plays that we see, but we don't see that connection being drawn here. Like, of course, you've got Constantine and, the Roman Empire till it breaks down. So, that makes sense. Stuff about materials and languages. And the Israelite people spoke Aramea. Now, it was later called Hebrew after the Roman Empire was breaking down, and then you had the Talmudic period and stuff like this, when it was really reserved to the Jews, which at that time weren't really so much Semitic, but yeah, biblical Hebrew is not really the right word, but the myths of the fall equinox fit more in line with the whole Greek idea, don't they? I mean, not entirely, but it really makes sense, right? And, they're surrounded by water and stuff too. So, blue is the color we're going to give ancient Greece. And to connect things to the founding of Christianity, we had the Hedonists, particularly the Epicureans, as an influence for Christianity. I mean, people don't use the term correctly. They think they're all a bunch of debaucherous people. I mean, we have Errol Flynn, and he kind of reasons it out, but typically you don't have that associated with that. I mean, true hedonists, true Epicureans. It's not. So we have the pre-Socratics. We have Socrates. Of course, there's the Socratic problem, right? we have Platonic philosophy, we have Aristotelian philosophy. So all that can be said to influence St. Paul. But of course, the answer in Christianity, there's a couple of verses that basically ban all philosophy. Like, okay, like after Paul was done with that, you can't do that. And aside from the labels, I would disagree with question 484 that Christianity, the Christian church, Christian ideas didn't come to us from the ancient Greeks. While the Koine Greek of the earlier, Old New Testament, as people call it, it was through a Greek idea, and everything that you see in Christian religion, you do see in Greek religion. Maybe not the same package, but there is you do have some ideas about the about how our language relates to false gods and different mythologies, but it's not like there was one system of mythology. Oh, like I heard this myth about Zeus, and therefore, well, not everything agrees with these. So, but their systems of government are talked about. Their material culture, always important to talk about the material culture of whatever one's going into. And we can talk about, what do the Greek myths mean? It's like, well, what do all the myths mean? What purpose do they serve? I don't know. As I'm saying, there's a lot of questions in each of these books. So, trying to summarize that. The summer solstice was a holiday among some of the ancient Egyptians, so that's as much of a reason to have this here as any. But white, as in myths that have colors about creation and the stages of creation, white and black sometimes very much play a role in the beginning of that. Oh, that has nothing to do with race, people, come on. So, the world of ancient Egypt. Who is that guy who wrote the Pharaohs and Kings thing? The book is around here somewhere. I think it's covered up by something else, so I don't know exactly where it is at the moment. That's the sort of fundamentalism that I kind of do on this channel. I turn to the sources, I make my own conclusions, I believe in what I'm going to believe in, whatever, but I'm not being liberal like I'm stepping aside for some sort of mere desire that I'm going to say that this is right or wrong, or I don't think in that. I mean, I'm sure that goes through my mind, but I'm not going to. So in the Pharaohs and Kings, the guy looked at Egyptian sources and biblical sources and said the truth lies somewhere between these, and details left out of both of them, right? So we talk about, Jewish rituals. We talk about the Passover. Because all the main Jewish rituals stem to the period that they talk about, the Exodus. So there's a lot to talk about the Exodus, and we're talking about what their religion was, but there's not too much about that religion. Different classes of society. These invasions and these Egyptian kings. Yeah, the guy is kind of like a side note to the Bible, right? And so we have 19 squares here. But of course, what brought about the Egyptian thing? So there's different forces of nature, evaporation and other stuff like that. And, again, their use of language propelling other cultures to come. So the questions are supposed to be randomized. I'm not sure how one is going to do that. You don't see a device for randomizing them. But you can sort of establish a trust of who's going to do that. Or the person that's not the non-player, that's people are bouncing off, well, they can pick like that. And people can look at decide how difficult the questions are. And you can move between worlds. So you're supposed to move through each. So 19 questions. Everybody has to get 19 answers. 6, 10, 16, 19. Yep. And of course, since this is laminated, we can use this for scrying. So the edges of the squares started to glow a little bit. And I saw more white fuzz. And tiny little gray little specks. And I feel a little bit more content and calm than I was than when I started this.